one of the NHL's all-time scoring wingers, Captain Dave Andreychuk, to date is the league's all-time leader in power play goals, and as team captain, led the Tampa Bay Lightning to their first Stanley Cup championship in 2003-2004. Today, retired and a member of the Lightning front office, fate has once again come calling for Dave Andreychuk, this time in the form of a nomination to the NHL Hall of Fame. Now, Tampa Bay's beloved Captain Dave sits down with MOR's J.P. Peterson to talk about it all.
My heart and everything was really, really awesome.
The world of video gaming is undergoing a dramatic transformation. He's recognized as one of the first to achieve a very special Guinness World Book status. He's recognized as one of the world's best and a reigning world champion. And he's an amazing story of courage and determination. With no arms or legs, he's beating the odds, overcoming true physical adversity. What is it that these three video players all have in common? You're about to find out. This is MOR Chronicle.
We all have dreams as a child, but how many of us truly get to live them out? Well, this is the story of a young boy growing up in hockey-crazed Hamilton, Ontario. And from the moment Dave Andreychuk laced up his first pair of skates, he dreamed he'd be an NHL player. This month, the captain of the Lightning's first Stanley Cup team will be enshrined with the greatest players of the game. And oh, what a long, strange trip it's been. Andreychuk had to wait 22 years to skate with the cup.
Dave, first let's start kind of towards the end. The ultimate postscript for any athlete is the call from the Hall. And you had waited 9 long years, and it was kind of an interesting way that you got it.
I was actually here in the office all day Monday morning, and I was on my way to the airport to pick up my wife, and at 2 o'clock I saw a 416 number, which is Toronto. And I'm thinking to myself, well, are the reporters already calling me to ask me why I'm not in? And sure, it was Lanny McDonald. So I answered it, pulled over to the side of the road on the 275, and answered the call. It was pretty awesome.
Do you remember, was your heart beating?
Oh yeah, as soon as I saw the 416, obviously. And then, you know, I had met Lanny before during the Centennial. With the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you know, the first thing he says is, Dave, this is Lanny McDonald from the Hall of Fame, and obviously my heart was racing. It was a call that I was hoping to get, didn't know how I would react, and it was you know, it was even more, you know, my heart and everything was really, really awesome.
So did you call your wife right away, or did you say, I'm going to wait till I get to the airport?
Oh, no, she was landing. She was landing. So the news travels very fast.
She already knew?
So unfortunately, she knew when she landed, opened up her phone, and she had already gotten some text messages already. So, which is fine. But I did call my parents right away on the side of the 275 and let my mom and dad know.
Speaking of your parents, let's go back to the beginning now, and it's almost like a Disney film. For a guy who spent his entire career in the toughest place on the ice, right in front of the net, your mom and dad worked in a steel mill, and you grew up in Hamilton, Ontario with that work ethic literally forged in steel. How did that foundation help you in your Hall of Fame
tremendous, career? Tremendous. You know, I mean, I watched my dad go to work every day, or both of them go to work every day, and you know, my dad was a shift worker when I was younger, so we understood, you know, what it meant, hard work meant. I mean, they were obviously a huge part of my success, not only as a minor, you know, hockey. I mean, we all talk about your dad and your mom going to tournaments and taking you. I was really fortunate. I mean, I played, you know, for 15 years, an hour from my hometown. You know, played in Buffalo for 12 years, and I went to Toronto for 3 years. So that, you know, made our family very, very close, and I was able to, my dad was able to watch a lot of hockey games.
So it was the 01-02 season, off-season, when Dave Andreychuk had a big decision to make. He'd been playing 19 years in the NHL and had not won a Stanley Cup, the holy grail for hockey players. Of course, the contenders came calling, but Dave's attention turned here to Tampa Bay. Head coach John Tortorella needed someone with that gravitas, that toughness, to mold his talented young team. He turned to Andreychuk, and the recruiting process got interesting.
And then, you know, John Tortorella, really, and him and Rick Dudley came calling. And they got to my wife, which was a good move by them, you know, saying we're going to, you know, come to Florida. And really, I guess, you know, when you sign with, at the time with the Tampa Bay Lightning, I don't think we're looking at winning a Stanley Cup. You know, the way the team was and the performance of the last prior years, I was just coming down as a challenge to continue my career and try to make this team better.
All right, so the year before the Cup season, Vinny gets stripped of his captaincy. You're made the captain, and for obvious reasons, the leadership, getting people, the players in that dressing room to be accountable. That's what Torts wanted, the room to be accountable. So take me through that process and what you saw in that season. You guys make the playoffs for the first time in 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts really when we get here. When Tim Taylor, myself, you know, Freddie Modine, our leadership group, it starts, you know, in '01. Let's really, you don't win the Cup in 1 year. Yes, that year prior, you know, in '02, '03 was huge for us. You know, we had a little bit of controversy with Vinny, and we had to smooth that out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that group was together for 3 years. We really started to bond together. And you know, for our leadership group, started with John Tortorella, it was really about being accountable, like you said. It was about coming to work every day, you know, taking your job seriously, and really, I mean, thinking that losing is unacceptable. And we had a great year. We really did have a good year. We get into the playoffs for the first time in a long time. You know, we go down 0-2 to Washington. We win 4 straight, which I think was great for us. And then we lose to the New Jersey Devils that went on to win the Stanley Cup. And I remember standing up in the room after that was over and just telling everybody that we were not ready to win. We were not ready to compete at the level that they were competing at.
When MOR Chronicle returns, Game 7 right here at Amalie Arena. That magical night, 25,000 fans, and Andy was sitting all alone. That story when we return.
MOR Chronicle will return in a moment.
Welcome back to MOR Chronicle. I'm JP Peterson. So as the 03-04 Lightning season begins, the Lightning are starting to turn some heads with their precocious young uber-talented players mixed with those grizzled veterans. But it was the leadership of Dave Andreychuk down the stretch that ultimately helped the Lightning hoist that Stanley Cup in an incredible Game 7 right here.
So you're starting to forge a good team now. Vinny and Marty and Modine, you mentioned, Fedotenko, yourself, Hobby Bulin and net. I mean, do you really feel in that season that you could win the Cup? Was there a moment where you said, we're as good as anybody?
Well, as a player, you don't want to look too far ahead,
yeah.
you know, as you're going to win the Stanley Cup. But I knew we were a very good team. I knew we were going to be a good team 2 or 3 years prior. You know, watching Richards, LeCavier, St. Louis, Boyle, you know, a guy like Corey Sarge or Jason Cullimore, younger guys that were ready to take that next step. And I think we went into that season hungry after losing to the New Jersey Devils and knowing that we could compete. If we stuck to the system, we played under John's system, we were going to win games. And I think our confidence just built as the year went on. So
you get Calgary in that final series, and you're down 3-2. I remember flying with you guys to Calgary and going in that arena and walking in, and the Cup was in the house, and that city was on fire. The Red Mile. And I said, wow, how do you, as a team that's been through all this in winning the Stanley Cup, how do you muster up the ability and the emotion to play not only against this team, but against this crowd, against Canada?
Well, we experienced it obviously in games 3 and 4, but I think it started right after we lost here in Game 5. We had a meeting right after, and we said, you know, we can win there. We felt like we could win. Let's go home, and all we have is positive thoughts, knowing that we can win there. We were strictly all business, as you know, going up on that plane. We got into that building. Now, obviously, we're very close. We win in double overtime, which I think was the greatest game that I've ever been involved in. Just the effort, watching guys put it all on the line, and then obviously winning in double overtime. It was pretty sweet to drive out that Red Mile knowing we were coming back here for Game 7.
And right after that game, you guys had a little celebration for a little bit?
Not very long. We did a little bit. We got back to the hotel. We all had a little bit of a meeting. We talked about how great the game was, and I expressed my same feelings about it. I watched 20 guys lay it on the line to get to Game 7, and we're not gonna screw that up.
That moment for you, Game 7, you're in the penalty box. As the clock ticks down, take me through it.
You know, it was just really exciting. The Game 7, obviously, to have a Game 7, to win the Stanley Cup in your own building. We talked about it before the game. This is why we worked all year long, to have this moment in our own building. We're not there. We worked here to have a Game 7. We're going to use the crowd, the energy around the whole building, not just here, outside the whole community. And we were focused. I think we were really focused. I mean, if you look back on that game, we played very well in the first 2 periods, and then we kind of hung on at the end. You know, a lot of people talk about me being in the penalty box. Kind of a cheesy penalty with 15 seconds to go. But at the same time, I felt very confident we were going to win. And I also I had a great spot to watch the clock tick down. I could look straight across at my bench, watch them celebrate. My family was right there, 129 right there. So I had a great spot.
Yeah.
And as it got to 0 and Javi made an unbelievable save with 5 seconds to go to preserve it, I remember skating out of the penalty box, and I have one picture in my office of that celebration, is I'm looking up in the crowd and giving my dad the pump. And it's just an awesome moment.
Coming up next, inside the world of professional video gaming and the Tampa connection, when MOR's Chronicle returns. What's going on in this Tampa Bay hotel is more than just a room full of video games and players. It's a growing phenomenon that is sweeping America and the world. And Tampa Bay is what you might call a player as well. These competitors go by nicknames or handles like Liquid Knuckle Dew, Hungry Box, and Universe. You might call them silly teenagers turned a sort of a 21st century digital athlete, as they compete playing video games as professionals, with prize money that can run into the hundreds of thousands, with big gaming names like EA Sports and big tournaments like the Evolution Championship Series, Intel Masters, and more. Today, even higher education is getting into competitive video gaming by offering full scholarships for players to attend their schools and compete. MOR took part in a tournament recently held in Tampa Bay.
I'm Todd Rogers, the king of video games, and I'm credited with being the first paid professional video game player.
Todd Rogers, we met, he is the first pro gamer ever, and we're grateful for Todd because Todd took a lot of that beating that gamers took for a long time.
How I got into professionally playing was Activision in the brochure on the game dragster said if you beat this time, you'll get recognition. Well, I beat the time, and I kept beating the time. So at the Consumer Electronics Show in 1982, they recruited me to come out to see if I was all that, if I was really as good as what they thought. And in fact of doing that, making the 5.51, which I'm credited for having the longest held video gaming record score at that Consumer Electronics Show, decided to hire me on. For an example, when I would get paid for an event, they'd offer me $1,000 a day. And if the event was 4 days, I got $4,000. The only thing I had to worry about is showing up and playing.
People like Todd who comes out here and he's making a difference in the community just by talking to some of the younger guys. You know, we just had Dew here. Dew just turned 21, and Dew is an anomaly. You know, normally the top players aren't that young.
Giant swing is going to end it on a perfect.
Finish it out with a perfect. Knuckle Dew takes
Ladies
the set
and
the
gentlemen.
tournament.
My most memorable moment was probably winning the World Championships, because when I won, like, it felt so unreal. You know, the amount of prize money, the prestige of the event.
Knuckle Dew is your Capcom Cup champion.
I remember when it said KO, like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, it was like it played back like a movie, all the flashbacks of like all the freaking stress I went through, and it was just amazing. Because growing up, my family's always been poor, you know, Section 8 food stamps. So I wanted to escape that, and how I did that was just winning tournaments. It was my uncle. He brought me to my first tournament, and when I won, it was a big deal because the age demographic for Street Fighter is generally older. So when a 15-year-old won a tournament, it got a lot of media attention. That's when I got my first sponsors. But Asian parents, you know, Asian standards, they want you to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer. So when I told them I wanted to be a full-time gamer, they didn't like it. And they didn't support it at first, but when I brought home my first big check, that's when they started to realize that maybe this could be a thing. 2 years ago, the World Championship, the winner won $5,000. But when I won last year in 2016, I won $241,000. They know it's a big deal now, and you know I help them out with money a lot, so they're very supportive now.
What kind of money is made at these tournaments? Goo gobs of money. I mean, if the sponsors are willing to pay out, like one instance is $260,000 to a gamer's prize, can you only imagine what they're making themselves as sponsors?
There's a lot of money to be made. Actually, today we're going to be giving away over $3,000 to the winners. There's all kinds of levels. I mean, you have the Knuckle Dew level where he went to Vegas and won $230,000 in one day because he was playing against the top players in the world. But you also have local players who make a living out of this, because you got to realize the Tampa Bay area has players all around, and what will happen is you have some of these players who aren't pro players, but they can go to local tournaments and win $100. So you get one guy who goes to 4 tournaments a week, he's making $400, $500 a week just playing games. Yep. Actually, one of the developers of Brawlhalla came all the way over here to kick people's butt in a totally different game.
Well, that's what happens. You make a fighting game, you play a lot of fighting.
There you go, man.
You've met the world's first and one of the world's best. Now, meet a player who's truly a champion in his own right. His amazing story when Chronicle Gamers on the Edge returns on MOR.
MOR Street Team here.
Gamers on the Edge.
My name is Kyle Romano, gamertag Tio Poppy. I play Smash for Wii U, and I main Charizard. I'm a quad amputee, which means that I neither have my arms nor my legs. I contracted bacterial meningitis when I was about a year old. As a result, they had to amputate, and amputate pretty short. Gamers on the Edge has been great on a whole. Everybody's been really receptive. Now that I've gotten to know everybody, I feel comfortable going up to them and asking them to, help me take my controller out of my bag. I play by using my left arm and my chin. Angel was nice enough to even go and purchase a table for me. Without that, I wouldn't have even been able to play.
I actually met Kyle in Tampa. We were running a tournament in Tampa, and immediately we just bonded, and he was just tearing it up. He's a really good player, and he'll downplay it. It's like, I'm decent. He's a good player.
I grew up essentially in Shriners Children's Hospital, so Gamers on the Edge and Angel, the cause, is something that's really near and dear to my heart, to be able to give back to people who were in a situation very similar to what I was in growing up. Kids who had disabilities and kids who were able-bodied both went up together and played, and none of the differences mattered. And so that's, I think, why I'm so passionate about video games and what they can do for people, because they bring people together that wouldn't necessarily have a connection otherwise. Gaming is something that has always been important to me, and recently I got into competitive Smash, so I would like to be able to bring that resource to other people who have disabilities who might be interested in that as well.
We're hoping to go with Kyle to the hospital and have some of that direct contact with the kids who are going through some of the things that he's went through already, and you can see how amazing he is, and everything he does, nothing slows him down.
So I would say reach out to other people. Feel free to reach out to me. Don't be as scared as I was to begin with. People are a lot more receptive than you would give them credit for, as long as you're willing to go out and kind of put yourself on the line. And so all in all, it's been a much better experience than I could have ever hoped for.
MOR Chronicle will return in a moment.
Gamers on the Edge basically does anything and everything we possibly can in order to help with All Children's Hospital, Children's Miracle Network Hospital, just getting the community together to recognize that we can make a difference.
The cause is something that's really near and dear to my heart, to be able to give back to people who were in a situation very similar to what I was in growing up.
Yeah, what Gamers on the Edge is doing is very admirable for the children. So that's always cool to see. Every tournament has different purposes, but this one's pretty cool, so I fully support it.
I think an event like this, like Gamers on the Edge, have a great idea when it benefits a charity like All Children's Hospital or any function like that, and if others can benefit by someone's skills, I think that's very beneficial to be able to do that, to give back to the community.
Well, you got to get out of your house. You got to find your local tournaments. We have local tournaments in Clearwater, off of Belcher, right between Ulmerton and East Bay. every week. On Tuesdays and on Wednesdays, we do local tournaments.
If that's your kid's passion, there is a market for it. You should probably support them and, you know, just keep letting them play while keeping their priorities in line as well.
And when you have somebody behind you screaming and hollering and cheering you on, it gets more people interested. The community will help you out. It's a great community, but you got to work with them and you got to work hard. So this is Angel, aka Profi Loco. I'm the founder of Gamers on the Edge. You guys need to come out and make a difference through gaming. Whether you join the team at gamersontheedge.com, click that join button, raise money for your own local children's hospital, or whether you come to our weekly tournaments, you gotta get involved, you gotta make a difference.